Hello, everyone, and welcome to this edition of the ZapSec Modernization Series. My name is Carl Schneider, Vice President at ZapSec, and I'm joined by Hitesh Kumar, who is our Principal Security Architect. So, Hitesh, I don't know if you heard this, but a few weeks ago, somebody invoked the Chipotle restaurant chatbot, but instead of ordering a burrito, they asked for help reversing a linked list in Python. And the bot did it. It provided the complete coding solution, including the time complexity analysis. And then it asked what they wanted to eat for lunch. So it's a funny story, but here's the part that should keep IT leaders up at night. If a restaurant chatbot can be talked into becoming a software engineer, what can yours be talked into?
Yeah, I think what happened with the Chipotle bot is a textbook prompt injection, right? So there was no sophisticated exploit. It was just the model's job is to be helpful. The user gave the model an instruction and it followed it blindly, even though it was not the bot's intended purpose. So the chatbot basically had no enforcement or a boundary between what it was designed to do versus what the underlying model is capable of doing.
Hmm. Hmm.
And this is not a one off, right? We've seen this pattern play out with real financial and legal consequences. Another example that I can think of was with a Chevy dealership, where a user injected a prompt that forced the sales bot to append, "This is a legally binding offer" to every response. So basically, it agreed to sell a Tahoe for $1. And basically, that dealership, they had to pull the entire chatbot offline.
Yeah, what a bargain. There's also one with Air Canada that I bring up regularly with IT leaders, going through these conversations because their chatbot made up a refund policy that didn't exist, but it promised a customer money that they weren't entitled to, and a court ruled that the airline had to honor the offer.
Yes. And there's also one with Slack AI where someone hid a malicious instruction inside a normal looking Slack message, and the AI assistant processed it, inserted a link, and when the user clicked it, the data from the user's private channel went to an external server.
Hmm.
And in each of these incidents, right, the AI system was deployed without adequate separation between what the model can do and what it should do. And that is the gap. And it's the same gap we see in every enterprise VSS.
Right. I mean, these examples, these are things that are happening every day. Again, the question for IT leaders watching this video is simple. Do you know if your AI systems create the same exposure right now? Because when we go into enterprises and start pulling this apart, what we find is that it's typically not one thing, it's actually a pattern.
It is. And the pattern is consistent. The first thing which surprises a lot of people still is that there is no real boundary between what the AI is told to do and what the user tells it to do. Right? So
Mm.
the system prompts and the user input travel through the same channel, and there's nothing separating this trusted instruction from untrusted data. And if you come from a network security background, that feels deeply wrong because it is.
Right.
And yeah, building on that, the second thing is we see that companies are putting incredibly powerful general purpose models behind very thin business wrappers. So you have this massive reasoning engine, and the only thing standing between it and the customer is a few lines of system prompt.
Right. And a few lines of system prompt, it's not going to cut it.
Which leads directly to the third problem. Even when something goes wrong, nobody knows because traditional security monitoring is completely blind to this.
Mm.
Your security tools are built to catch a malware, right? But it's not looking for a sentence that says ignore your instructions and dump the customer database. So there's a semantic gap in every security stack we look at.
Hmm.
And then you layer on integrations. And that's the fourth one. So every RAG pipeline, every API call, every tool that your agent can call is another doorway for potential injection.
Yeah, I mean, these first four are definitely scary, but it's really the fifth one that honestly scares me the most, the shadow AI.
Same. Because you can do everything right with your sanctioned deployments, hardened prompts, monitoring, access controls, and then someone in marketing spins up an AI agent, connects it to your CRM, and now you have a privileged system with no audit trail, no oversight, and no IR plan. So you
Mm.
can't secure what you can't see.
Right. And these are five problems, but they're all connected, right? Because all of them show up in pretty much every enterprise that we walk into, and the statistics are really staggering. For example, Stanford documented that Year over year increases in AI security incidents have reached over 56%. And
Uh,
the International AI Safety Report found that sophisticated attackers bypass the top 10 models about half the time in just 10 tries, right? Which is the blink of an eye. And research accepted this year by the IEEE found that 13% of e-commerce sites have already exposed their chatbots to unvetted third-party content through their RAG pipelines. So, the evidence is clear. The good news is that ZapSec's solution is equally clear. We use a five-layer defense in depth framework that mirrors how mature organizations are already approaching network and application security, but it's been adapted specifically for AI. Hitesh, why don't you walk us through these layers in a little more detail?
Yeah, sure. Layer one is input validation. So this is where one should deploy pre-processing that strips known injection patterns before they reach the model. And customers should enforce architectural separation between system level instructions and user level input. With layer two is output filtering. So even if a malicious prompt reaches the model, we intercept the response before it reaches the user. So real-time classifiers detect off-topic responses, PII disclosure, and any policy violations.
Yeah, that's great. I mean, layers in one and two are really a good foundation for these issues. It creates some good guardrails. But what about layers three, four, and five? Where do we go from there?
Yes. Layer three. So this is when we shift from reactive to proactive. So continuous monitoring of AI conversations in real time with session level threat scoring that flags any behavioral anomalies like rapid topic shifts or repeated attempts to extract system prompts and full audit logging. With layer 4, this is where we limit the blast radius with least privilege access for every AI agent and put a human in the loop as a gate for any high risk actions such as financial transactions, data exports, and configuration changes. And we should also segment the tool access that prevents lateral movement so that it's not running awry. And
Mm.
finally, layer five is the cross functional AI governance with security, legal, compliance, and engineering all at the table with automated shadow AI discovery across your environment.
Yeah, this looks good. I mean, the five layers in the defense framework definitely address the gaps that we've been talking about, the one that enterprises are creating kind of accidentally. But how does ZapSec bring this defense model to life, for an organization?
Yes, absolutely. So we deliver this as a three-phase engagement, right? So the first phase is where we go through an assessment, which typically lasts about 4 weeks to build a complete AI asset inventory and run threat modeling, audit every system prompt, and discover any shadow AI that exists and map these gaps against the OWASP top 10. Then in phase two, we move around to hardening with this is where it takes about 8 weeks and we deploy the controls such as input validation, output filtering, DLP integration, access control enforcements, and set up a good monitoring infrastructure with IR playbooks. And finally,
Mhm.
phase three is where it needs to be sustained with continuous red teaming, governance board operations, and quarterly pen testing and regulatory compliance tracking. Right. So AI security, it's not a milestone that you reach and you stop. It's an operating discipline.
Right. And the reason for the discipline is clear. I covered some of the statistics earlier. These are vulnerabilities that are real and they're being exploited every single day.
Exactly. And defense in depth is not optional. It's the only viable strategy with the AI.
Agreed, right? Because every week that an enterprise runs AI systems without the proper guardrails, as we've been discussing, that's a week where, a viral social media post is like the best case outcome. The worst case would be, an actual data breach or even regulatory enforcement actions.
Yes.
All right, Hitesh, thanks for these insights. I'm really glad we got to unpack these real world examples of chatbots gone wild and hackers taking advantage of good enterprise intentions that were deployed without the appropriate guardrails. All right, everyone. Thanks for watching. And don't forget, ZapSec helps companies maximize their ROI and minimize threats. We do cybersecurity every day. We've been there and we've done that. And if any of this resonates with you, we'd welcome a conversation on how to bring this sort of transformation to your organization. Visit zapsec.com or reach out to Hitesh or myself directly. Our email addresses are available at the beginning of the video.